Welcome, viewers. Today we journey across the Red Sea, where a single drone sparked a massive global crisis. 12% of the entire world's global trade flows through this narrow strait, carrying daily goods and vital fuel. But almost overnight, Houthi rebels turned this busy trade route into a deadly combat zone. Armed with inexpensive drones and devastating missiles, they forced massive shipping fleets to quickly sail away. How did a small militia cripple the global economy? Let us explore this dramatic naval conflict. The Red Sea remains a vital artery for the world. Millions of barrels of oil pass through it daily. According to global maritime data, closing this route disrupts markets on every continent. Giant cargo ships, loaded with thousands of containers, rely on the Suez Canal for safe transit. For decades, these massive vessels sailed on peacefully, connecting mighty markets from Asia to Europe. But late last year, the mountains of Yemen hid a new, terrifying threat to all global shipping. Houthi fighters, hardened by years of harsh mountain combat, shifted their deadly gaze to the open sea. They were not equipped with standard naval destroyers or heavy maritime combat frigates. Instead, they weaponized cheap commercial parts, building deadly strike drones deep inside hidden caves. A drone costing just a few $1,000s was prepped to strike a mighty vessel worth millions. They also deployed advanced anti-ship ballistic missiles, launching them from the dusty coastline. Radar screens on civilian ships suddenly lit up with incoming high-speed aerial threats. The merchant crews, trained only for peaceful commerce, found themselves bracing for military strikes. Sirens blared across the ocean as unarmed cargo ships desperately tried to evade the fire. Plumes of black smoke rose above the dark blue water, marking the first direct hits on the freighters. A vital commercial choke point was instantly transformed into a terrifying battlefield. Modern history has rarely seen such a massive disruption caused by a non-state armed group. The international shipping community was completely caught off guard by these tactics. Insurance premiums for crossing the Red Sea skyrocketed, pricing out many transport groups. Many ship captains refused to sail into the danger zone, demanding safer, alternate routes. The insurgents declared they would never stop the barrage, tying their actions to regional conflicts. This political stance turned a local dispute into an international security crisis. Every missile launch from Yemen sent massive shockwaves through the fragile global supply network. Factories in Europe faced sudden delays, waiting for crucial components stuck on the water. Retail giants warned of completely empty store shelves as the crucial holiday shipping season was threatened. The sheer scale of these civilian ships made them easy, slow-moving targets for the incoming drones. A single direct impact could cause millions in cargo damage and threaten the lives of the crew. The Red Sea, once a bustling highway of trade, became an empty expanse of deep, dark water. The world watched in absolute shock as global commerce was choked by a faction without a real navy. With the Suez Canal essentially blocked, shipping empires had to make a drastic, costly choice. They ordered their massive, mighty fleets to turn around and sail down the western coast of Africa. Rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope added thousands of miles to every single journey. This enormous detour consumed millions of gallons of extra fuel, destroying profit margins. Freight rates multiplied overnight. passing the heavy financial burden straight down to the consumers. The dark ghost of global inflation, which economies fought hard to suppress, returned with fierce force. If you were managing a global brand, how would you survive this sudden logistics nightmare? Experts noted that this single bottleneck could disrupt the post-pandemic economic recovery. Analysts stared at glowing red charts, tracking the massive delays and rising global transport costs. African ports, usually quiet, were suddenly overwhelmed by diverted megaships. This logistical nightmare exposed the deep fragility of our modern interconnected world. We built a system relying on absolute efficiency, ignoring geographic choke points. The Houthis perfectly exploited this weakness, knowing the financial pain would spread extremely quickly. A rebel group effectively taxed the entire world without ever setting foot outside their borders. Shipping companies begged for heavy armed escorts, unwilling to risk their massive corporate assets. The economic bleeding was too severe for Western superpowers to simply stand by and watch. The United States quickly rallied its allies, determined to reopen the critical sea lanes. Defense officials announced Operation Prosperity Guardian, a massive naval force. This was the most significant maritime defense mobilization seen within this region for decades. Several powerful nations pledged their advanced warships to protect the vulnerable merchant convoys. But bringing billion-dollar destroyers into a drone fight presented a new, unexpected flaw. The strategic calculus of naval warfare was about to be tested in unprecedented ways. Military planners had to devise tactics to shield sprawling fleets of slow, civilian targets. As the Allied warships steamed toward the mighty Gulf of Aden, the global markets held their breath. Would the presence of the world's most powerful navies be enough to deter the rebel attacks? Or would the insurgents escalate the conflict, dragging the superpowers into a prolonged war? The stage was set for a historic clash between high-tech military might and cheap guerrilla arms. The dark waters of the Red Sea prepared to host an explosive, asymmetric technological duel. Guided missile destroyers, heavily armed and armored, quickly took up their defensive positions. Deep inside the ships, the combat information centers hummed with eerie blue light and tense focus. The legendary Aegis combat system scanned the skies, tracking multiple targets simultaneously. Radar operators locked onto incoming threats, shouting firing commands over the ship radios. The vertical launch systems burst open, firing advanced interceptor missiles into the dark night. The Standard Missile 6, a true marvel of modern engineering, tore through the sky at extreme speeds. It successfully engaged and vaporized the incoming lethal strike drones high above the ocean waves. The sky lit up with brilliant orange flashes, proving the effectiveness of Western defense tech. Do you think using a $2 million missile to shoot down a cheap strike drone is sustainable? This exact question haunted the Pentagon as the intercept numbers began to rapidly climb higher. The tactical victories on the water masked a growing, unsustainable strategic financial loss. The Houthis were waging a war of economic attrition, and they were mathematically winning. Every time an Allied ship fired its primary weapons, it drained a massive portion of its budget. The rebels simply assembled more inexpensive drones, maintaining relentless pressure on the fleet. Supply chains for these high-tech interceptors are slow, making rapid reloading impossible. A warship can only carry a limited number of missiles before it must return to a friendly port. The insurgents knew this limitation and launched swarm attacks to deplete the defensive naval magazines. In response, coalition forces began striking launch sites directly on the Yemeni mainland. Fighter jets roared off aircraft carriers, dropping precision bombs on enemy radar and storage sites. Tomahawk cruise missiles leveled rebel facilities, hoping to sever the drone supply chain entirely. But the rugged, mountainous terrain of Yemen provided perfect cover for mobile missile launchers. Like hunting phantoms in the desert, the airstrikes struggled to completely neutralize the deadly threat. The rebels adapted quickly, hiding their assets and launching surprise attacks from brand new locations. The mighty Western coalition found itself bogged down in a frustrating, seemingly endless duel. Despite the military protection, many shipping firms still refused to return to the dark Red Sea. The perceived risk was simply too high, proving that deterrence had fundamentally failed right here. The insurgents had achieved their primary goal, crippling a global artery with minimal investment. This conflict forced military academies to rewrite their doctrines on modern naval engagements. The era of unquestioned maritime supremacy by massive, expensive fleets was now deeply shaken. We are witnessing the democratization of precision strike capabilities across the globe. Non-state actors can now project power across vast oceans, challenging established superpowers. The economic paradox of this war will define defense budgets for the next several decades. Nations must develop cheaper laser weapons to counter these low-cost drone swarms effectively. Until then, the fragile global supply chain remains highly vulnerable to asymmetric threats. The Red Sea crisis serves as a harsh warning about the hidden costs of our globalized economy. As we rely on distant factories, securing the paths between them becomes an impossible task. The insurgents proved that a determined faction can exploit these geographic bottlenecks with ease. The heavy toll of this ongoing blockade continues to strain markets and families around the world. But as the lethal drones keep flying, we must ask, where is all this advanced technology coming from? Intelligence agencies point to a shadow network smuggling advanced weapons across the region. The rebel forces did not invent these advanced ballistic missiles entirely on their very own. Shadow smugglers move precision parts through hidden desert routes and disguised civilian merchant ships. Once inside Yemen, engineers assemble lethal weapons deep within secret underground caves. This dark network creates a rebel force capable of challenging the greatest modern navies. Mighty Western fleets are trapped in a purely reactive posture, constantly playing active defense. The daily financial cost of maintaining this protective shield over the mighty sea is staggering. A long, protracted war of attrition heavily favors the militants over the superpowers. They do not need to sink an advanced aircraft carrier to claim a massive strategic win. Simply keeping shipping lanes closed and raising global transport costs is an absolute rebel success. The dark waters of the Red Sea remain a volatile danger zone, abandoned by cargo fleets. Global trade must now permanently adapt to this much longer, vastly expensive ocean route. This unprecedented naval conflict proves that modern technology has truly democratized war. Asymmetrical warfare is now the frightening new reality for any global superpower. A few determined fighters, armed with inexpensive weapons, can successfully block the entire world. The ultimate lesson of the massive Red Sea blockade is written clearly in millions of lost dollars. But who supplies this advanced drone technology to the Houthis and the mighty Hezbollah forces? As dark smoke clears over the Red Sea, a massive question remains about modern naval warfare. Is the era of expensive warships finally over? Share your thoughts with us in the comments down below. If you found this information valuable, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep security dives.